Hey everyone, good morning. It's Comic Artist Pro Secrets, and I am Ethan Van Sciver, 26-year veteran of the comic book industry, world's most charming, elegant, eloquent, and yet humble man, great big Star Wars fan, trusted member of the media. Of course I am. I'm sitting here working on Cyberfrog Blood Honey, which is my crowdfunded comic book. It's going to print at the end of this month. You have one last chance to back Cyberfrog Blood Honey and get a copy of my comic book. The link is in the description below. It's doing amazing. We just passed $125,000 today, and it is just cruising. This is the third time we've opened it up. People who did not get to back it in September, did not get to back it in, I think July was when we ended it, have been asking me, why can't I get a copy of Cyberfrog Blood Honey? Now you can. Campaign's open one last time. If you miss it this time, I have to do the shrug emoji. Shrug, frog, rainbow. Shrug, frog, rainbow. Alright, so as I'm working on Cyberfrog Blood Honey, I got this article past my desk. Somebody said, hey, look at this bleeding fool. Not bleeding cool. Bleeding fool, okay? Look at this article. Marvel and DC Comics will never be the same. This was a nice essay presentation written by Chris Braley, and I read it and was just shocked all over again. ComicsGate emerged from a real sense and evidence that far left wingers had taken influential positions within the comic book industry and were doing everything they could to shut other people out, to silence other voices, and then to take control of the narrative that was coming out from these comic books. Hey, look, if you can put voices in the mouths of the superheroes, if you could put your politics in the speech balloons of these comic books, spoken by real heroes, people we acknowledge to be heroes, people like Captain America, people like Superman, people like Batman, then you've really won one aspect of the culture war. Unfortunately, as we've seen, when SJWs, far left-wingers, social justice warriors, invade any pop culture platform, it shrinks, diminishes. At first there's a shock, like people don't know what happened. But it diminishes, it shrinks, and eventually, collapse. But before that, of course, they're going to rob it for short-term gains. They're going to do variant covers. They're going to do all kinds of weirdo gimmicks in order to just pull every last dime they can out of this industry, and that is sad. So we, at ComicsGate, initially, ComicsGate is a consumer movement, a market uprising against these forces, against changes that were happening within the comic book industry, wherein the books were far too political, and the actual professionals were being kind of rude to the customers, people who were actually supporting their comics, and people who were actually criticizing what was going on within the comics. You're going to see that here in this article. So ComicsGate is basically, at first, criticized all of this, and then secondly, we decided to go out on our own and produce our own comic books. Now, I was a professional. I worked at DC Comics for 25 years. I was a professional at DC for 20 years, working in comics for 25 years. I worked for a couple of other companies before that. I worked for Marvel Comics for like a year and a half on X-Men. I've been there. I know what it is. I know what the scene is. I know who the people are. I understand this. We've got a lot of kind of, angry, perpetually adolescent people working within comics. Not everyone, but quite a few. And these people are unfortunately influencers, if you could call them that. So I know what it is. I know what we're up against with ComicsGate. And yet we've had tremendous successes. I mean, just yesterday, and I'm going to brag about him all day long, Clint from Sweetcast launched his comic book after doing everything he was advised to do by watching our live streams, watching me do Cyberfrog, talking about how it's important to get your voice out there, gain an audience, win the trust of your audience, tell them about your product that's coming out, talk about it all the time. I mean, talk about it all the time, advertise your work, and then launch a very appealing looking product. Boom, you are going to be successful. And Clint did launch his book, which is called Downcast, on Indiegogo, and it was funded in one day. And that's the kind of success that ComicsGate can be proud of, implementing our policies, implementing our ideas and our rules, our plan, our schedule. will lead people to success most of the time, and it's great to see that. So why is this all happening again? I mean, this is just a rundown. I mean, Chris kind of gives a rundown. This is kind of like a eulogy for the mainstream, and it is something else. It starts out just with this tweet from Dan Slott, who is the writer of Spider-Man. I think he writes Iron Man now. I don't know. Dan Slott Dan Slott was initially the one who his social media behavior kind of caught the attention of some of the critics of ComicsGate, some of the critics within ComicsGate. And they would say, why is Dan behaving like this? But this is an early tweet. This is from 2015. And look what he says. He says, apologies to that poster. Making fun of their post while including their Twitter handle, while I've got 65,000 plus followers, was not cool. Sorry. Yeah, this is when people started to realize that, look, if you've got incredible power with your social media, you can actually have people brigaded. I mean, you can point them out, you can hold them up to ridicule and all of that, and this became quite a thing. This became a tactic for SJWs early on. So at the heart of this article's title is the conclusion: the hard-left ideologues that work for Marvel Comics, DC, and in most of the comic book publishing industry do not wish to coexist with anyone whose political leanings are to the right of this country. In fact, at least it would appear, they wish to extinguish them. This is true. They do not value any customers who do not think or vote like them. I tried to address this last summer, but nothing much has changed. In fact, as much of this article will demonstrate, it's only gotten worse. This is true. You're going to watch. You are going to watch some of these big name pros. Here's Gail Simone. Look at this. This is the intimidation tactics of social justice warriors, far leftists within comics, are really extraordinary. Who is she talking about here? She says, it's going to be very important to remember who endorsed Trump, who chose this ridiculously unqualified lump over their country. Gail Simone is basically calling out she's calling out Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States, as a traitor to his own country, and anyone who voted for him. And that's quite a few people, as traitors to their country. How exactly? First of all, that's insane. That's absolutely insane rhetoric. But it's heated. Apparently, this happened right before the election, so it's kind of understandable. People get heated, they get worked up. But how is anyone supposed to buy a Gail Simone book after this? After being called unpatriotic, after being called a traitor to their nation? How is anybody supposed to do that? Bill Sienkiewicz, remember, the GOP doesn't give a rat's ass. Remember, the GOP doesn't give a rat's ass about you, your family, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, immigrants, rule of law, healthcare, or due process. I love how he slips rule of law in there. That's interesting. They only care about corrupt, rich, white. We don't. The rest of it's on Facebook. I'm sure if you want to read his rant. Again, to be forgiven. No, not to be forgiven. This was recently. This was October 2nd, 2018. I thought it was going to be 2016. No. The election's way over. Trump is the president. He's doing a pretty good job. And still, we've got people spreading this kind of absolute poison about 50% of the country. It's 50% of your countrymen. It's not some weird kind of inside faction within the Republican Party. He's just saying the entire Republican Party. That's fascinating. I'm shocked by this. Alana Smith, this is amazing. She is an assistant editor over at Marvel Comics, says, make no mistake, even if Trump loses, we will remember who supported him. That's an incredible statement. So she's basically saying, if you are a Republican, if you are a Trump supporter within comics, and you are vocal about it, who is we? Well, the Whisper Network, the Whisper campaign, the rumor and gossiping campaign within the comic book industry, they will talk about you, and they will make sure among themselves that you will not get work in comics. It's fascinating. I mean, this is an admission right here, and she was not punished for this. This is interesting. Edwin Boyette, of course, comes out and he talks straight to Joe Quesada about this. This was back in 2018. He says, speaking with John Malin Live, he said, it wasn't cool Alana used political intimidation when she was my editor. That's what this is right here. This would never be tolerated. This would never be tolerated anywhere else. That's how the comic book industry has become so sickened and so frightened of itself. Tom Brevoort backed her up. Joe, why didn't you speak up then? Was it indifference or cowardice? That's a great question. Probably a combination of two, and the fact that he, might support that kind of attitude. People are in power right now within the comic book industry who are completely irresponsible with that power. They're either afraid to confront social justice warriors, or they're in agreement with them. This is, hey, it's no longer about just behaving decently. It's no longer about having boundaries and remembering that we're all Americans. It is about utilizing the power that you have to take revenge on your political opponents, people who disagree with you politically, people who vote differently than you. We have the power to punish them in some way. We couldn't win at the polls. We couldn't win the election, but we can punish everyone that we know who handed us this severe defeat. Tom Brevoort responds, the only time politics ever entered into things was when John Malin pitched writing a team-up story between Captain America and the President Trump, and we told him it wasn't something we were interested in pursuing. That's interesting. There were an awful lot of Marvel comics during the Obama presidency in which Spider-Man teamed up with President Obama. It's odd that suddenly that kind of thing comes to an end, as if Marvel Comics doesn't have Republican readers who would be interested in seeing the president as something other than MODOK or a villain in their stories. The message is clear every single day. What we're seeing online and in the comics coming from them is an unprecedented level of hate, dishonesty, distrust, and mistreatment. A strong disdain for the ideology of conservatism, social norms, constitutional government of Western civilization is what it is. It's not a new phenomenon. The ideological divide is no longer merely an ideological divide, nor has it ever been. No, now it is about taking revenge. Any group that fights to completely silence another because they don't like what the other has to say is a textbook fascist. Why? Why are they doing this? Antifa used violence to silence people. These people literally think white supremacy is on the rise. It's on the fucking decline. But certainly not thanks to them. And then I don't know who Peter Ramsey is. Who's Peter Ramsey? Do you understand what fascism is? Do you understand what these alt-right fascists want? On white supremacy, Donald Trump is a white supremacist. He's had Steve Bannon and Steve Miller, both white supremacists, in the White House. The White House! Try to keep up. Talking to these people is unbearable. I mean, they are absolutely insufferable to make these kind of assertions of absolute and complete total evil of people that they disagree with politically. They will ascribe to them the worst things, the worst motivations imaginable, and they're just, you can't talk to them. You can't have a conversation with them. It's pointless. All you should do is just, you have to just kind of either walk away or just heap scorn on them. They need to be socially punished for this somehow. And again, you've got Heather Antos, who was at Marvel Comics, is no longer at Marvel Comics. He has risen. Just kidding. April Fools. That was when April Fools was on Easter, last year. So making fun of some Christians here. Gail Simone condemning Chick-fil-A. That's ironic. We don't need to support companies that have this kind of thing in their DNA. Chick-fil-A still donates to anti-LGBTQ causes. They're a Christian company. You're going to have to get used to that. The struggle comics consumers are having is that if you believe in fairness, freedom of speech, conservative values, decency, or morality, then you are at a liability because in the present culture war, the other side has no such self-limiting governor in place. That is right. I mean, they used to. They used to feign decency. They used to feign fairness. They wouldn't want to be called out and said, hey, you are being unfair to the other side. You are limiting the scope of the discussion by shutting out the right. And that is unfair. That's uncool. That's certainly not liberal. That's not what liberalism should be. But liberalism and normal Democrats, and that might include you listening, you have been supplanted. You've been taken over by this very, very vocal and powerful minority, SJWs, social justice warriors, who are activists. Who are activists and quite frankly, mobilized to silence people who disagree with them. Tom King here, comics aren't for everyone. Here's Mags Visaggio. By the way, I got to do a video about this. Mags Visaggio is transgendered. I think she was early on. One of the people who ComicsGate kind of pointed out and said, this person, she's trans, she's a terrible writer, and she's getting an awful lot of work, and that is because of her identity. Like SJWs in editorial, SJWs within the comic book media are propping up untalented people. They're propping up untalented creators within comics and allowing them to fill the stands, to proliferate the comic book shops with unsellable garbage. Simply because they want to look woke, they want to look cool, they want to look like they're down with all LGBTQ, specifically T. That's the ultimate. That's the top of the victimization hierarchy pyramid right there. They want transgendered people working for them, even if they're not talented, and many of them are. I mean, I think we've got half a dozen that I can think of right off the bat. Transgender creators who are very, very good at what they do. Mags isn't one of them. And yet Mags, because she's very vocal on Twitter, because early on she was picked out by ComicsGate YouTubers and who criticized her work, she, of course, is being placed in high positions of regard, of work. Initially, I felt bad for her, but now she's got this whole thing. I got to do a video about this. Mags is like, let's get together and do our own Cyberfrog book and rush it to print. That'd be the ultimate troll. Yeah, it'll be very funny. You should do that. Maybe somebody will finally accidentally buy one of your books. Mags goes, I'm done with this. So fuck you, fuck cis assholes, fuck your bullshit. Get ready for a baseball bat to the teeth. That's rhetoric right there. That is heated rhetoric, I would say. Mark Wade, seriously, fuck off. Please never read my comics again. I don't need money from someone who attacks me out of nowhere. Well, that's weird. I would never tell anyone to not read Cyberfrog. I'd say I don't want to talk to you because you're being a dick. But I turning away the customer's money like that is very, very strange. This wasn't made for you. I don't want your money because you are this person that I disagree with. No. Somebody asked me the other day, they go, do you want the money of white supremacists? I said, I don't ask questions like that. This is not a question that somebody like me, who's in the business of producing a product to sell to people, most of whom, the vast majority of whom I will never meet. I want everyone to buy Cyberfrog. Absolutely everyone. Even SJWs. That is my place. That should be my position as somebody who is producing a product. The idea that you want to exclude someone, tell someone they're not allowed, or you don't want them to purchase their product is insane. It's absolutely insane. And it will lead to, it leads to destruction. It just leads to the end of business, of industry, of prosperity. And that's where we find ourselves in comics right now. And look, this guy actually says, this is where we find ourselves. A large percentage of the comic book consumers who don't engage in disrespectful ways, but are involuntarily under persecution from hard left extremists who happen to be assigned to write or draw their favorite superhero characters unless upper management starts to rein in this type of toxic engagement from their creators, or even a larger percentage of the comic book fandom will spend the next period of understanding that they're actually under assault, and they have to decide how they wish to respond. And it isn't just in the creators' social media feeds, it's in their stories being told. It is. They're being insulted. These days, in comics, I mean, if you want to buy comics the normal way, you got to get in your car, you got to find a comic shop, you got to go out there, you got to, if you're on the right, if you're a Republican, you've got to go into your comic shop and hope to God your comic shop owner isn't some sort of ideologue that's going to scoff at you or give you dirty looks. You go in there, you can buy comics that are now $5 a piece on the cover. 22 pages of story for $5. You bring it up to the counter, you endure the heckling or whatever it is, the mistreatment maybe from the person who runs the shop. You take the book home and the book is insulting you. The book itself, the content of the story is insulting you. This is not something that can be surmounted. This is not something that is tenable. This is not something that could survive in any business environment. Here's Andy Corey, far left-wing editor over at DC Comics. What people actually mean when they say they want non-political comics, like when they're kids, is that they're devastated to have woken up one day as an adult, read a comic book, and realized they'd grown up to become the type of person their childhood hero punches in the face. Do you understand? This is the message that gets out to people. When you say, please keep your left-wing politics out of my comics, please keep your far left-wing divisive, uncreative, and no fun left-wing politics out of my mainstream superhero comics. This person is quite rightly saying, Andy is quite rightly saying, yeah, we've changed your superheroes to be people who would punch you, somebody who voted for Trump, in the face. I don't know how they expect to sell a single book. I don't understand how this is something that is acceptable or something that makes sense under any circumstances. It is incredible. Here's Tom Brevoort, big editor over at Marvel Comics, Human Ewok. 36% are white, entitled assholes like my son. He's actually saying this about his son, who are overjoyed that shit's getting done. This is an unhinged person who's actually insulting his son over the election of the president. A transitory official like Donald Trump. Donald Trump's going to be out of office, in 2024, 2025. And then Mike Pence is going to be out of office in, let me do the math, 2033. In 2033, your son is still going to be your son. And you're going to have isolated him. You're going to have, sent him away and insulted him just because of 16 years of the Trump-Pence administration. It just doesn't seem like a good idea. Nothing lasts forever except the bonds of family. I hate to have to say that. Mark Waid telling people to go F themselves over politics. Tom Brevoort, sad that most Marvel fanboys are misogynist crybabies who fear strong gals like America. I've never read this tweet. This is something else. He says, sad that most Marvel fanboys. He is just the entire gender, the male gender of people who are reading Marvel books are misogynist crybabies who fear strong gals like America Chavez, terrible comic, Unbeatable Wasp, terrible comic, Thor, terrible comic, and Squirrel Girl, awful comic. Is this a troll? He's got to be kidding me. And this goes on and on and on. Look, look at this. All these people. This guy goes, it's kind of baffling that you view having a small audience as desirable. Tom Brevoort, a big editor at Marvel. We're talking like a super powerful editor at Marvel Comics. I don't view that as desirable, but bigots can keep their money. Marvel has always been about inclusion and against intolerance. Well, your entire staff is going to be included on the unemployment line. Your entire staff is going to be included on the Dow. You got to be kidding me. On the dole. You can't. Oh my God. This is astonishing. Tom Brevoort, I've never even seen this stuff. I've never even seen this stuff before. Nick Spencer, writer over at he wrote Spider-Man, I think now. The polls are more clear. The polls are more than clear. There are not. Stop believing in the myth of the good Republican. Do you understand how toxic this is? Look at this. When I say "f*** off, you racist misogynist," I mean "f*** off," blocked. And here's Joe Quesada. This is the Chief Creative Officer of Marvel Comics. Very excited about all of this. Support indie comics. Stop giving your money to companies who hire, employ, and promote creators that despise you. Do you understand at this point? I mean, these people really hate you. They don't deserve any of your money, and they're actively saying they don't want your money. They don't want your money. I do. Cyberfrog does. Clint at Downcast, Sweetcast, his comic book Downcast on Indiegogo, he wants your money. Mike S. Miller with his book The Meg, he wants your money. All of these, Indiegogo campaigns that are ComicsGate oriented, that were created as a response to this, as a reaction to this, we desperately want your support, and we will work to earn it. And this is why. This is why we have to do that. We have to do that. These people, I'm sorry for the vulgarity of this. Looking at some of these tweets, they're disgusting and vile. We actually do want your support. We want you to be a part of us. We want you to join in this crusade to rescue comic books, not the comic book industry, okay, but to rescue comic books, the actual medium, from these monsters who have squatted therein, taken over, and used it as a baseball bat to beat up their own fans. Thank you for listening. I know this one went on kind of long. This is a long video. This is like something that your boy Zach usually does. I kind of try to cut it off after 10 minutes, but I have a lot to say about this, and it needs to be underscored. I'm grateful that, you know, this article was written on Bleeding Fool. Great website. Thank you guys for letting me read this. Support independent creators. Again, stop giving your money to people that hate you. Cyberfrog Blood Honey, the link is in the description below. Thank you so much for the continued support of that book. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, make sure you're still subscribed, click like, share this video. Let's get the word out. We can make a change. We can change things. We do have everything that we need. We have each other. We have everything that we need to build up a brand new comic book industry outside of what they've done to the great work of Stan Lee and all of these brilliant creators that came before them. They've ruined it. I think they've ruined the goodwill that was built up by these people and the love that people have for these characters in a lot of ways. We have to change that, and we have to make things better. All right, thanks everyone. See you again soon with a new video. Hey, I got a P.O. box. Want to send me some mail? Send it to Ethan Van Sciver, P.O. Box 607, Marlton, New Jersey, 08053. And I'll probably open it up on the live stream. Thanks very much, everyone. Hello, potential Indiegogo backers. Hello, friends. My name is Ethan Van Sciver. I'm a comic book creator who worked for 20 years for Marvel and DC Comics on books like Green Lantern, Flash, Superman, Batman, and X-Men. But before that, I had a comic book called Cyberfrog. Now, Cyberfrog lasted from 1993 to 1998, and then it stopped when I went to go work for DC Comics. Now I want to tell the story of where Cyberfrog has been for the last 20 years. I want to write, pencil, ink a book called Cyberfrog Blood Honey that tells the story of gigantic alien hornets that come to Earth and conquer it, sending Cyberfrog into deep hibernation, where he emerges now in the year 2018 into a completely alternate reality, a new world where these hornets have taken over, devastated humanity, using human skin to make gigantic wasp hives, and harvesting human blood to make honey to feed their young. Very few humans still exist, but it's up to Cyberfrog to save what's left of humanity and turn back the damage that's been done by these wasps with his brother Salamandroid and his friend Heather Swain. I want you to help me do this. We're going to get colors by Kyle Ritter. He's a fantastic colorist, and he's going to make this book sing. I'd like this to be a 48-page one-shot prestige format, part 1 of 4. So I'm asking you to help me launch the very first Cyberfrog Blood Honey epic graphic novel. Are you in? Will you help me? I hope so. Let's get this frog jumping again. If you enjoyed this video and want to become part of this community, subscribe to this channel by clicking the laughing man face logo right on your screen. Ring the bell for notifications as well. You'll never miss a live chat. And stay tuned, another video by Comic Artist Pro Secrets is coming right up.